Hi, my name is Professor Michael Mitchell. I'm currently a visiting assistant professor in the Departments of African American Studies and Criminology here at TCNJ. This is my first year at TCNJ. I'm originally from the state of Texas, where I was born and raised. I'm currently completing my PhD from Texas Southern University, which is a historically Black institution located in Houston, Texas. My training has mostly been in criminology and criminal justice. My research is focuses primarily in criminology and criminal justice, looking at the racial inequities within the criminal justice system. I'm also a former police officer and corrections officer. So in my classes at TCNJ, I often incorporate my personal experiences, being an underrepresented minority, a Black male living in what I argue is a racist society, but also one who worked within the criminal justice system, the very system that I critique. So I often incorporate my personal, my professional, and my research experiences at TCNJ. I also teach social justice-oriented courses, particularly Introduction to Social Justice, Race, Crime, and Justice. And previously, in fall 2020, I taught School to Prison Pipeline. So at TCNJ, I'm here to help the campus progress into a more socially just, equitable, inclusive institution. Yes. So, as I often mention in my Introduction to Social Justice class, social justice has no universal definition. Social justice looks and means something totally different to each individual person. To me, social justice is simply um, it means to respect, to be inclusive of all forms of life, whether that be human beings, animals, the environment, and so forth. So, in my position here at TCNJ, I'm challenging not only my students, but myself to envision a society that we want to see and then actively work towards creating that society. So, most recently, my research agenda has looked at the intersection of parenthood and reentry. And what I mean by that is I'm looking at the lived experiences, the day-to-day realities of formerly incarcerated individuals returning from incarceration back into the community. Within that, I'm particularly interested in the experiences of formerly incarcerated or returning citizens with children. So I have a few publications that look at the experiences of uh, being a father in prison. I have a journal article that explores the challenges and resilience of formerly incarcerated Black mothers, and it interrogates how Black women in general and those with criminal records returning into society often counter or reject these hegemonic ideals of motherhood that are often afforded only to white women, white mothers. While formerly incarcerated Black mothers, although they do undergo challenges with regards to navigating a society after being labeled a felon, they often employ their own ideals, their own conceptions of what it means to be a mother. And what you see, what you see that is similar to women of all racial, ethnic backgrounds, is that there's still this love for their children. There's still immense sacrifices made, and often women with criminal records, especially formerly incarcerated Black women, go above and beyond. They often even sacrifice their own health, their own well-being, their own bodies to provide for their children. And I think these are narratives that we need to amplify and highlight. So with my work that looks at the experiences of formerly incarcerated mothers and fathers, because I'm currently looking at the experiences of fathers, I want society to recognize these individuals as human beings. I want society to recognize their parenting role. I want society to realize and understand that just because an individual who has children has a criminal record, that they shouldn't be ostracized. They shouldn't be considered throwaways. They have not gave up their right to be a parent. And I want policy to be implemented as well as programming and resources to be provided to help these individuals not only transition back into society, but also help prevent the intergenerational cycle of mass incarceration within these families. Well, one thing that I've noticed throughout my research with formerly incarcerated mothers and fathers is that there's often this trauma, this unaddressed trauma, the trauma of separation through incarceration of the parent, trauma that the children undergo and experience as a result of separation from their parents, but also unaddressed trauma from the parents' childhood. And I think it points to this importance of recognizing and putting systems into place that can help deal with early childhood trauma, so that it can prevent a cycle of intergenerational trauma, intergenerational unaddressed trauma that can impact parenting. It can affect childhood. Um, and serve as and have a deleterious impact on affected communities, especially disproportionately minority communities that are already economically disenfranchised. So in my research, I hope that not only we talk about mass incarceration and its impact on the family, but also look into deep-rooted issues like trauma, like intergenerational poverty, um, like economic economic disparities and structural inequalities that often disproportionately lead to mass incarceration, therefore creating generations of affected Black, Latino, and other historically oppressed groups and children. Um, I'm a firm believer of, as someone who considers himself a social justice advocate, someone who is actively engaged in social justice movements. Um, to be engaged in social justice is to believe in humanity, is to have a respect for humanity. Being involved and interested in social justice means wanting to step outside of yourself for a greater cause. And I challenge, us as, I challenge the TCNJ community. I challenge faculty, staff, students in the campus community to step outside of yourself for the greater good. Step outside of yourself for a greater cause. And if we can do that, I think that our campus community can certainly become more inclusive and progress. So thank you.